What's up guys, and welcome back to another Dirt Bike Magazine video. Today, it's the 2026 two-stroke buyer's guide. We keep hearing people lament the passing of the two-stroke age. They clearly aren't paying attention. Two-strokes are alive and well, and for model year 2026, there's no end in sight. Beta, GasGas, Husqvarna, KTM, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Rieju, Fantic, TM, Sherco, GPX, and Cobra are offering more two-stroke dirt bikes than ever. Some are high-tech, some are old school, but all maintain the key traits that make two-strokes distinctive. This year, some are affected by new tariffs more than others, and that causes some price inconsistency. Some have rolled it into MSRP, others have an additional charge, so pay attention. The world is changing fast, and the prices listed here can change at any time. First up, Beta 350RX, 250RX, base price $10,290 and $9,690. For 2026, the biggest news in the two-stroke world is that Beta has two new motocross bikes. The 350RX and 250RX arrived to replace the 300RX. The 350 is bored and stroke compared to the 2025 300RX, whereas the 250 has the same stroke as the 300 but with a smaller bore. Both bikes use a mechanical power valve and key-in carburetor. The gearbox is 5-speed, the suspension is KYB, and the brakes are Nissan. The Beta 300RR Race, 250RR Race, $11,590 and $11,390. Beta's race models are upgraded versions of the RRX Pro off-road bikes designed specifically for competition. They have aggressively tuned KYB suspension and do away with the oil injection system. The 250 gets a new motor this year and has much in common with the 300, including the dual spark plug head, handguards, and numerous upgrades come as standard equipment. The Beta 300 RRX Pro, 250 RRX Pro off-road bikes. Base price $10,990 and $10,790. Beta's 300, 250 two-strokes are now on the same page with beefed up center cases and main bearing surfaces. The 250 has additional changes to the bore and stroke that allow it to use the same crank as the 300. Both models have gearbox changes with an updated second gear. The X Pro line features oil injection, but fuel mixture is still available via an old-fashioned key-in carburetor. The Beta X Trainer, base price $8,990. There's nothing like the Beta X Trainer. This was conceived as an entry-level two-stroke, but has developed a following among veterans and seniors. The engine is loosely based on the Beta 300RR, but is reconfigured for low-end power. The chassis is 15% smaller, the suspension is shortened and softened, the seat height is reduced, and the price is considerably lower than any 300cc two-stroke out of Europe. The Fantic XC300, base price to be announced. Fantic has finally arrived in the US. For years, the Italian company has offered its products elsewhere. Now, the XC300 two-stroke is here with a new fuel-injected electric start motor. The frame and many components are sourced from Yamaha, but there is no connection between the two companies. The XC300 motor has been in development for years at Fantic's subsidiary, Motori Minerelli. The GasGas EC300, base price $11,149. GasGas calls the EC300 an enduro bike, which is code for a motorcycle designed for trail riding rather than competition. It still has throttle body fuel injection with an integrated electronic power valve, but it also offers oil injection and an open cartridge WP Explore fork. The EC300 has no map switch as standard equipment, but one can be purchased through GasGas technical accessories. The GasGas EX300, base price $11,099. For 2026, GasGas no longer offers the MC300 motocross two-stroke in the US, but the EX300 cross-country racer is built on the same platform. The aggressive map is buried in the ECU, just waiting to be activated by the accessory map switch. The EX has the same fuel-injected motor, electric start, and electronic power valve. It also has an updated WP coil spring exact fork and an updated wiring harness. The GPX TSC 300R, TSC 250R. Base price $6,899 and $5,699. Out in the wild country of Utah, the guys at USA Motor Toys are fighting the good fight to improve the quality of motorcycles that come out of China. The GPX line shows great promise with influence of testing from America. The TSC 300R and TSC 250R models are power valve two-strokes that bear a strong resemblance to pre-fuel injected KTM two-strokes with no link rear suspension. The GPX TSC 300L, base price $6,899. This is a Chinese-made motorcycle that shows incredibly good fit and finish. The two-stroke case reed motor has electric start, a counterbalancer, and a hydraulic clutch. Most of the components are sourced in Asia, including an SCZ fork and shock, the radiator fan, and the billet triple clamps. The GPX TSC 300L uses linkage rear suspension and comes with handguards and a disc guard. The Husqvarna TE300 Pro, base price $13,899. Traditionally, the TE two-strokes are seen as the more trail-oriented line in Husqvarna's worldview. The TE300 is available only as a special edition for 2026. That means it comes with numerous upgrades as standard equipment, including a factory wheel set, full wrap handguards, and even a preload adjuster added to the WP coil spring exact fork. The Husqvarna TX300, base price $12,049. Husqvarna will have a significantly reduced range of new bikes in the initial release of 2026 models. More will follow, but for now, the only off-road two-stroke is the TX300 Cross Country Racer. Good choice. The TX is similar to the TC250 motocross bike, but with more torque and a 6-speed gearbox. It also has off-road suspension with a coil spring WP exact fork, a larger fuel tank, and off-road equipment. The KTM 300 SX, 250 SX, $9,899 and $9,649. Dante Oliveira got a nearly stock KTM 300 SX for the first time just days before the 2025 two-stroke World Championships at Glen Helen Raceway and won the Open Pro class. It's probably the most sophisticated two-stroke made, with an electronic power valve that is integrated with the throttle body fuel injection system. In the chassis department, it's very similar to the four-stroke KTMs, with a WP fork and Brembo brakes. The 250 SX is nearly identical, save for the displacement. The KTM 300 XC, 250 XC, base price $11,849 and $11,549. KTM's XC two-strokes are fuel injected with electronic power valves. They are similar to the motocross versions, but with more fuel capacity, softer suspension, a coil spring fork, and off-road equipment. Owners of the 300 XC report longer piston life than the manual suggests. That probably can be attributed to application rather than mechanical difference. The map switch makes a very big difference in performance. The KTM 300 XCW Hard Enduro, $13,699. The Hard Enduro is a special edition of the 300 XCW that boasts a long list of high-end parts. It gets an orange frame, a factory wheel set, Hard Enduro frame guards, full wrap handguards, a rescue strap, solid Galford disc, and many other upgrades. It sells for over $2,000 more than the standard models, but if purchased separately, the total would be greater still. The KTM 300 XCW, 250 XCW, base price $11,949 and $11,549. The XCW models are KTM's dedicated trail bikes. Unlike earlier years, the current XCW models have significant mechanical differences compared to the XC competition models. They have a milder power output and service intervals that are substantially longer. For 2026, the coil spring fork has a number of changes that are said to result in less weight and more durability. There are also updates to the radiator cap and fuel connector. The Rieju MR Pro 300i, base price $11,399. Reiu is a small Spanish company that entered the big leagues in off-road racing when it acquired the rights to build the off-road two-strokes that formerly carried the GasGas name prior to 2021. For 2026, Reiu has introduced a new two-stroke engine of its own design, incorporating an electronic power valve and throttle body fuel injection. The MR Pro model is the elite version with upgrades in suspension and components. The Rieju Racing 300i, base price $10,399. Rieju has streamlined its model line for 2026, with the MR 300i Racing Edition filling the role of a standard model. It's far from being a plain Jane off-road two-stroke, with the new fuel injection motor and a chassis that uses KYB suspension, Nissan brakes, a neck and handlebar, and XL rims. The frame itself has had a few changes since it was introduced on the 2019 GasGas. The Sherco SE 300, SE 250, base price $11,699 and $11,499. Sherco emerged from some big changes in the US last year and is rebuilding its dealer base. The motorcycles are mechanically unchanged for 2026. They are still built from the ground up in France as an off-road bike rather than repurposed motocross bikes. The 250 and 300 only differ in displacement, but both have electronic power valves, key and carburetors, and KYB suspension. The TM 300EN, 250EN, base price $11,699 and $11,599. TM is back in the US with a new importer after a short absence. The 300EN and 250EN both have electronic power valves, aluminum frames, a KYB fork, and TM's own rear shock. Both are available with a key and carburetor or with fuel injection for an extra $100. Additionally, TMs can be ordered in the course configuration with anodized clutch and ignition covers, a radiator fan, and more for an upcharge of $1,600. For 2026, TM will also offer an ENX configuration for cross-country racing. The prices will be $11,199 for the 250 and $11,499 for the 300. Likewise, both are available with EFI for an additional $100 and in course livery for $1,600 more. The TM 300MX and 250MX. Base price $11,099 and $10,899. TM offered its own fuel-injected 2-stroke 300cc motocross bike long before KTM, but the Italian company was without an importer until recently. You can also buy the bike in a 250cc variety, and both sizes can be had with EFI instead of a carburetor. The upcharge is $100. For 2026, all configurations have new clutch hubs and baskets, new mapping, and other updates. Available in the course configuration by special order for an additional $1,600. There is also a US-only race edition of the 250 that is said to have 9 horsepower more in power thanks to head and cylinder work. The GasGas MC250, base price $9,899. GasGas gave the MC250 a new look for 2026, as well as a handful of updates to the suspension, wiring harness, and radiator cap. Under the bodywork, it's very similar to the KTM 250SX with an e-start fuel-injected motor and 5-speed gearbox. It does not have a map switch as standard equipment and uses BrakeTech hydraulics and Maxxis tires. The fork is a WP exact fork and the bars are Necken. The Husqvarna TC250, $9,749. For the initial months of the 2026 model year, Husqvarna's motocross line is all 2-strokes. That means the TC250 is the flagship of the line until the factory editions arrive in fall. The TC250 is worthy of that position with its electronic power valve and throttle body fuel injection system. It has 2 maps. The gearbox is a 5-speed, and there are only detailed changes and new graphics for 2026. The Yamaha YZ250, $8,099. Yamaha has been a steadfast supporter of 2-stroke enthusiasts by continuing to offer the YZ250 where other Japanese manufacturers have backed away. Critics complain that the YZ has had minimal changes over the last 20 years, but it continues to be competitive in the World 2-Stroke Championship and is currently homologated for competition in AMA Pro Racing both outdoor and supercross. The Yamaha YZ250 70th anniversary, $8,299. Yamaha's very first motorcycle was a 2-stroke called the YA1 back in 1955. The company is celebrating the completion of its first 70 years in the motorcycle business by offering the YZ250 in special colors. The 70th anniversary edition has white plastic, red graphics, a red seat, and black rims. The upcharge is $200. The Yamaha YZ250X, $8,199. Yamaha knows that off-road riders are the real fan base for 2-strokes, so the YZ250X was created just over 10 years ago. It started with a wide ratio 5-speed gearbox and a number of off-road concessions, and has kept pace with the motocross version and updates over that period. It still lacks electric start, but the aftermarket has embraced the bike to provide that, as well as a variety of other mods. The Beta 200RR X Pro, $10,190. Beta's 200RR is a throwback to the great era of the 200cc 2-stroke. Currently, no other manufacturer has embraced this platform, which is a heinous oversight for the entire motorcycle industry. It features electric start, a 6-speed gearbox, and oil injection. It also features a coolant recovery tank, X-Trig elastomer bar mounts, and a rescue strap. For 2026, there are significant updates in the gearbox. The 200 is also available in a race edition with upgrades that include KYB suspension. The price for that model is $10,790. The KTM 150 XCW, $10,499. Mechanically, the 150 isn't that far removed from the 125 SX motocross bike, now that both are electric start with EFI and an electronic power valve. The off-road version is in a very different state of tune, with 20.1 cc's more displacement, different gear ratios, and off-road suspension with a coil spring fork. It also has lighting and full off-road equipment. For those extras, the price increases by $2,000. The TM 125 EN, $10,699. The 125 TM 2-stroke is available with carburetor or fuel injection. Like the larger TMs, it has an aluminum frame, a KYB fork, and a shock that is made in-house. The brakes are a mix of Brembo and Nissan components. For 2026, the 125 has reinforced exhaust valve and revised mapping. Also available in ENX cross-country configuration for $10,199. The upcharge for EFI is $100. The course model is $1,600 more and has a list of upgrades. There is also an ENX 144 that sells for $9,899. Only available in the carbureted configuration. The TM 144 and 125 MX, $9,599, $9,899. TM is reputed to have the most powerful 125 motocross bike currently available in the US. The 125 can be had with carb or fuel injection, whereas the 144 is only available with a key and carburetor. Both have an electronic power valve that is reinforced for 2026. Also new for 26 is a launch assist mode and revised firmware and mapping. All TM models can be ordered as course special editions for an additional $1,600. The Beta 125 RR X Pro, $9,490. Beta's 125 RR is stripped down for the 2-stroke purists. It has no oil injection, no electric start, and nothing to drive up the cost. What remains is an old school 125 2-stroke. The 2026 model features a new piston and a new head with updated combustion chamber architecture. It also features a new gear system with reinforced gears. It still features a coolant recovery tank, X-Trig elastomer bar mounts, and a rescue strap. The 125 is also available as a race edition with a price of $9,890. The GasGas MC 125, $7,849. The GasGas 125 motocross bike is on the same page as the Husqvarna and KTM 125s. That means it's a very sophisticated motorcycle with throttle body fuel injection, an electronic power valve, and electric start. The suspension is handled by WP Exact components with air in the front. The triple clamp is forged, the clutch is hydraulic, the brakes are brake tech, and the tires are Maxxis. GasGas continues to come in at a lower price point than KTM or Husky. The Husqvarna TC 125, $8,549. The Husqvarna TC 125 has an incredibly smooth power delivery with a ton of mid-range power. It's been that way since it acquired fuel injection, electric start, and an electronic power valve in 2023. The Husky is so smooth, in fact, that some riders claim that it's not fast enough, which turns out to be fake news according to the dyno. There are a handful of detail changes for 2026, including the graphics. The KTM 125 SX, $8,449. KTM reinvented its 125 motocrosser when it incorporated electric start, throttle body fuel injection, and an electronic power valve in 2023. At that point, it became a low to mid-range powerhouse, but lost some peak horsepower. A handlebar switch makes 2 different maps available on the fly. The 26 model has mild updates that concern the fuel protection cap, wiring harness, radiator cap, and cosmetics. The Sherco SE 125, $9,299. Sherco's 125 off-road bike shares all the same features with its 250 and 300 big brothers. It has an electronic power valve, a 36mm key and carburetor, electric start, KYB suspension, Brembo brakes, and a Brembo hydraulic clutch. For 2026, Sherco has made a number of detailed changes, including a lighter power valve mechanism and gearbox updates. The Yamaha YZ125, $7,199. In 2022, Yamaha revised the YZ125 motor, and that resulted in a marginal power increase. As it turned out, most of the other bikes in the 125 class suffered marginal power decreases, so the YZ is back in the game. Also, the GYTR accessory division is on the case with a hop-up kit that provides significant power boost. The YZ125 70th anniversary, $7,399. Yamaha's very first motorcycle back in 1955 was, after all, a 125 two-stroke. So it's only appropriate that Yamaha celebrates its anniversary with a special edition of the YZ125. It's called the 70th Anniversary Edition and has white bodywork with red graphics, a red seat, and black rims. Mechanically, it's no different than the standard one. The YZ125X, $7,299. Like the YZ125 motocross bike, the YZ125 off-road model was updated with a new motor in 22. Many riders say those changes resulted in greater benefits for the off-road version. The X mode has an off-road specific suspension, and changes in the power valve and exhaust give it a smoother hit and more low-end power. The 6-speed gearbox is the same as that of the MX model, but it has lower final gearing. The Kawasaki KX112, price to be determined. Kawasaki introduced the KX112 in 2022, replacing the aging KX100, and now is the only factory-built 112 aside from the pricey TM. It qualifies as a super mini with a 16-19-inch wheel combo and a motor that is larger in both bore and stroke compared to the 85. The seat height is 34.3 inches, which is 1.5 inches more than the KX85. The suspension travel is the same as the KX85 at 10.8 inches, front and rear. The TM 112MX and 85MX, $7,999 and $7,299. The TM Minis are red meat in the American amateur racing community because they can race in the limited class where they have a distinct advantage. There are 3 bikes based on the same platform. The 85 has a 14-17-inch wheel combo, while the 100 and 112 have a 16-19-inch wheel combo. The TM Minis have carburetors and aluminum frames. The power valve and mapping are updated for 2026. The GasGas MC85, $6,649. The GasGas MC85 received significant update in 2025, so the bike returns mostly unchanged, even in the graphics department. Only subtle technical updates have been introduced for 2026, including revisions to the triple clamps and cooling system. The bike is offered with a 17-14-inch wheel combo in its standard configuration, but there's also a 19-16-inch version for $200 more. The Husqvarna TC85, $7,149. Husqvarna has positioned itself as the premium brand in the KTM GasGas Husky collective. As such, the TC85 has a slightly higher price than the others. It still uses a case reed power valve 6-speed motor. Most of the components are the same of the KTM, including Excel rims, WP suspension, Formula brakes, and ODI grips. The standard version has a 17-14-inch wheel combo, while a version with a 19-16 wheel combo is available and has an MSRP of $7,349. The Kawasaki 85, price to be determined. Back in 2022, the KX85 got a new look, as well as changes to the gearbox, cooling system, and even tires. The Kawasaki still has a lower seat height than many of the other bikes in the mini class and is excellent for younger, smaller riders. In outright performance, the KX suffers against the Austrian bikes in the limited classes, but has great potential for mods. The KTM 85SX, $6,949. The youth racing scene in America has become a parade of KTM minis. At Loretta Lynn's last summer, 96% of the 85s and Super Minis originated from the KTM factory. The 2026 model has an updated engine that is lighter, with a smaller spark plug, reduced compression ratio, and a new shift drum. The standard model is a 17-14-inch wheel combo, and the big wheel version is a 19-16-inch wheel combo and has a base price of $7,249. The Yamaha YZ85, $5,099. In 2022, Yamaha updated the YZ85 with new bodywork and chassis improvements, and just 3 years earlier, and it got substantial motor changes. That means the YZ85 looks just like the bigger Yamaha two-strokes. It still surrenders outright performance to the more expensive 85s from Austria, but can hold its own in the suspension department. The YZ85 LW Big Wheel has an MSRP of $5,299. The Cobra CX65, $6,298. Each year, Cobra announces its new model line at Loretta Lynn's. It makes perfect sense because the small Michigan-based manufacturer has an incredible legacy of success in amateur racing. The 26 CX65 also recently earned its first ever win at the 2025 FIM Junior Motocross World Championship with a gold and bronze double podium. The GasGas MC65, $5,749. Back in 2024, the GasGas MC65 received its last major change. Since then, there have been subtle updates. For 26, the most significant change is updated front suspension with a reworked air cartridge and better sealing. It also has updates to the triple clamp and radiator closure. The MC65 is very closely related to the KTM and Husqvarna, but still sells for less. The Husqvarna TC65, $5,999. Most parents probably know by now that Husqvarna motorcycles come from the same factory as KTM, but that's irrelevant to the kids who can be fiercely loyal to their brand. The Husky TC65 has its own bodywork and look, which hasn't changed in several years. Like the KTM, the TC65 has WP suspension components and benefits from a new exhaust gasket and redesigned exhaust valve. The Kawasaki KX65, base price $4,249. The Kawasaki KX65 central role in the hierarchy of youth-oriented motocross bikes. It allows beginners to grow accustomed to a manual clutch and 6-speed gearbox as a stepping stone into the world of full-size motorcycles. Other 65 motocross bikes are far more expensive and intimidating. The Kawasaki's days as a competitive racer in amateur racing are long gone, but there's no other bike that currently fills the same space. The KTM 65 SX, $5,899. The 65 class often presents young riders with their first exposure to a manual clutch and gearbox. The KTM offers that, as well as a truly competitive platform for racing, with a pressure-controlled exhaust valve, a case-reed motor, and even a hydraulic clutch. The seat height is adjustable from 28.1 to 29.9 inches. The 2026 model has an upgraded gearbox with a new shift drum, more durable clutch, an updated 35mm exact WP air fork, and a number of other refinements. The Yamaha YZ65, $4,499. After years of neglecting the entry-level classes in motocross, Yamaha engineers created the YZ65 in 2019. The impressive part was that they did it and kept the price somewhat reasonable, and now Yamaha can at least run with bikes that cost hundreds more. At Loretta Lynn's last summer, Yamaha proved it with a national championship in a field of Cobras, KTMs, and Huskies. The Cobra CX50 FWE, $6,246. The FWE is an elite version of the already elite CX King 50 Cobra. FWE stands for Factory Works Edition and offers an upgraded clutch, cylinder, and suspension. It has features like a titanium axle and swing arm that rides on needle bearings. Each year, Cobra makes improvements to ensure the CX50 FWE remains competitive in the 50 class, where it has a long history of success. The Cobra CX50 JR, $5,140. The CX50 JR is made for less experienced young riders, but still is a close relative to the CX50 SR competitive bike. The JR has a lower seat height and a milder power delivery. It uses 10-inch wheels at both ends as opposed to the 12 10-inch combo on the SR, but both wheels are forged and anodized just like the ones on the larger Cobra. For 2026, the swing arm has been extended 25 millimeters, bringing the wheelbase to the AMA maximum of 37 inches. The GasGas MC50, $4,999. GasGas has made an especially big impact on the mini market with the MC50. Maybe it's because the price is slightly lower than the KTM or Husqvarna, or maybe it's just because the kids love red. The 2026 model has updated front suspension and reworked air cartridge with better sealing, as well as new, more robust transmission shafts. The MC50 still has a great deal of adjustability, so it can grow with your young racer. The Husqvarna TC50, $5,199. Husqvarna's TC50 presents a different take on the KTM 50SX. They share the same frame and motor, but the bodywork is exclusive to Husqvarna and capitalizes on the brand's Swedish legacy. That might not mean as much to a young rider as it does his dad, but we know who pays the bills. Both the subframe and rear shock have multiple mounting positions that allow different seat heights to suit the rider. The KTM 50SX, $4,949. KTM believes in indoctrinating young riders early in their motocross careers, and the 50SX has become the most common mini racer on the track. It's competitive in stock form with its case reed motor and adjustable clutch. The seat height can vary from 24.9 to 26.8 inches thanks to adjustable suspension. For 2026, the WP Exact fork has been updated along with the clutch, transmission, and other details. The KTM 50 SX Factory Edition, $5,849. The KTM 50 SX Factory Edition is just like the big KTM Factory Editions. It has all the features of the standard SX, including the updated fork, clutch, and transmission, but this model also gets a Hinson clutch cover, an FMF pipe and silencer, black rims, a 2-stage reed valve, Red Bull graphics, and an assortment of high-profile cosmetics. The Yamaha PW50, $1,899. If there's a rider in the current roster in the AMA Pro Motocross who didn't start his riding career on the Yamaha PW50, he's somewhat of a freak. The PW has now been around for 45 years and remains an iconic entry-level motorcycle because it doesn't have a clutch lever, a gear shift lever, or chain. The seat height is 18.7 inches, and it's easy to set up with a tether and training wheels. Well, that's it from the 2026 Dirt Bike Magazine 2-Stroke Buyer's Guide. Whether you're looking for a new bike or you're just interested to see what 2-strokes are out there and available for sale in the model year of 2026, we're glad you came by and checked them all out. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you down the trail.